everyone. We're calling the meeting to order at 6:34 p.m. This is a regular meeting of the town of Wilmington Board of Selectmen for August 17th, 2026. Okay. Anyone hear us right now?
Yes.
You can hear us now?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. For those who are just joining us on audio, we called to order and did the pledge. Now we're at item 3, approval of minutes. Yeah, minutes till the next meeting. Present speak. Public participation is encouraged. Speakers are limited by appropriateness, staying on topic, and maintain decorum. Time may be limited to maintain progress. All right. We'll start on screen. We have one that shows as Linda Smith. We have a hand up.
Yes, I do.
Hello. Anybody else online? All right, we'll come back to online. In the room. 97 Trask Road. I want to address the school project and the monument this evening. At the last SBC meeting, is understanding that the SBC has made the recommendation that the project they want to move forward now. I strongly urge the board follow procedure to get this project to be brought up Board of Finance so we can understand what the cost is. But most village residents are trying to find out what that is. Presently, I'm pretty proud. Secondly, also, understand the project. The information is presented on the SBC website excludes fees, bonding costs, or upfront costs, as well as retirement of our existing buildings based on the recommendations they are making to us. Lastly, ask Board of Selectmen, for Finance, Planning and Zoning Commission all recognize that the biggest project was presented to the community. The townspeople will select a project based on available potential or choices of that project. And hope that continue in that direction. We may just have to speak firmly.
If we speak louder, does this come through for you guys online better? If I speak like this, or is it still choppy? Okay. So
Yes, that's better. All right, so we're gonna have to ask everyone to speak up. For whatever reason, we're still having microphone problems. And yes, I have had it looked at multiple times by IT. Okay. Anybody else in the room?
Chris Lawler, 48 River Road. I was looking at the Crowd report on student projections in coming years. His report was used as a basis for the scope of the project that we're having. So his total enrollment is projected to increase from 373 students on October 1st, 2025 to about 520 students in 2035. Says it is critical to remember that a projection is just a moving forward of recent trends. Then he states, my kindergarten model expects no decline between birth and eventual kindergarten enrollment from 2026 to 2028, but a 5.6% decline between 2029 and 2035 would be stating that we're going to be having all of this growth. He states that the projection of kindergarten enrollment is a problem in any analysis. He says we must tolerate some error in predicting kindergarten enrollment from prior births. In addition, there was a negative 0.26 correlation between births and birth to kindergarten growth. As births increased, birth to kindergarten growth decreased somewhat. This should be a problem as we expect future births to be in the 50s, and we have little recent experience with birth to kindergarten growth with births of that magnitude. So, going back to 2006, 2007, combining our schools, there were 596 students. By 2016, 9 years later, there were only 426 students. We lost over 170. We've lost roughly 170 students in that time period. So, in 2016, there was a decline of 8 students. 2017, an increase of 8. 2018, a decrease of 11. 2019, an increase of 11. 2020, we had a decrease of 41 students in a single year. 2021, a decrease of 12. 2022, an increase of 13. 2023, a decrease of 6. 2024, a decrease of 20, and in 2025, a decrease of only 1 student. So I've looked at his reports over the past few years, and every single projection that he does is off base from what we got coming into our schools. His projected report stated 392 students in 2026, while our Board of Education is projecting 386 students. In 2022 to 2023, Mr. Crowder said that there would be 416 students, but we only had 391 students. He was off by 25 pupils. And then in 2026 to 2027, he was off again by 7 students. So he's always overestimating. And the fact that we're using his numbers to come up with these class sizes really makes no sense to me, because there's no guarantee that any of his figures are right for the next 10 years. So I think it should be taken into account. I don't know why the building committee can take into account that we really might not need a building for around 520 students. What we need is a building that maybe should anticipate a little bit of growth, but as far as making a building, we should have a building that we can add on to in case students do move into town. So one of the reasons that they're using these numbers is one, he says that it's a good figure to use as far as community planning goes. But on top of that, if we have that many classrooms, they're going to use the classrooms. And one of the goals of the Board of Education has been to have a decline in the number of students per class. The state of Connecticut says there should be a ratio of at least 1 to 15. Well, we have classes in our schools that are 1 to 12, 1 to 15. And some even lower, which is not in sync with what the state projects. So I'm thinking that it would be nice if you people would send it back to the building committee so that they could come up with a more realistic program. I mean, in my opinion, we do need an addition, we need a new school, but as far as a building that big and the tax increases, taxpayers are going to have to pay, it makes no sense that we go with something like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody online? All right, last call online or in the room. Thank you, everyone.
No opportunity for business.
And those are always close. Item 12. All right. Correspondence. A couple of things that you all needed were sent to you by in emails right away. There's nothing. I don't think we have anything here. Tax refunds, we have none for tonight. Public works reports. Roadside mowing, grading, dirt roads, trash at the park, help parks and rec with moving stuff from summer camp, whacking around guardrails, cleaning the tops of catch basins when rain was coming, which seems to keep coming, mowing sight lines. The amount of mowing this year on the sight lines has been more than some years because we've steadily had a fairly good year for rain, and things are growing very lush and green. And so some places that only get mowed once in an entire summer have been mowed 2 or 3 times. Also back, it actually was maybe a little more than it was maybe since the last meeting. They rebuilt the drainage on Penny Hill Road right at the curve. There was a catch basin that probably 4 years or so ago, or maybe longer, was collapsing. And the temporary solution at the time was basically to cap it. But of course, it eventually was collapsing more underneath. So they dug that up and replaced it and put a new pipe across Penny Hill Road. We just basically replaced everything that was there with new.
Question on the sight lines, spelling of sight, S-I-G-H-T. Slightly different.
We usually copy and paste when they get sent. I try not to edit it too much, but I miss that.
Okay. Under detail.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I have a proclivity for picking up on this one.
For Stedman report, helping support the finance department some over the last couple of weeks for budget year rollover, which was particularly complicated this year by a couple of things. Getting through the budget building process and the final referendum approval, of course, meant some of the budget couldn't be built for the new year until the final. So the budget was at a state that would be passed by the voters. And then we also had switching over to insurance this year, which was the health insurance, life insurance, vision, dental, all that stuff, which is still ongoing to today when the new insurance for some reason has an employee on there that doesn't even work here anymore. But somehow got brought over from the old insurance to the new insurance and they don't work here. So that's a lengthy process.
So we're paying for that person.
No, we didn't. Okay. No, we caught it in the census that they gave us. So no, we're not paying for it. Wrapping up the hiring processes for the assistant and the accounting assistant in the finance office and for the revenue collector. We just finished the interviews at 6 o'clock this evening for the revenue collector. So those jobs will both be getting filled very soon. Doing administrative work to support school building committee process and some grants in town, including the much talked about grant for the fire station at 426 River Road, which we are finally making progress on, as well as the grant that our legislative helpers secured for us in the final moments of the legislative session for the Lister Road Bridge. We're now meeting with engineering firms to design the solution for that for Lister Road crossing. And I've assisted Public Works with administrative tasks and some things working with townspeople who had concerns or issues relating to what driveways mean roads and drainage, things like that. For new business, review of the August 12th town meeting, the school building, item 1, the money for the deposit for the school building committee possible land purchase led to a lot of good conversation. That was a lengthy part of the meeting, and that was voted through. The next one was the renaming of the capital project for the fire truck. That was discussed also, some clarity. A couple questions for the fire chief, and that was a somewhat simpler process and project for the townspeople, and that was voted through, and was contacted, and it's in process getting the money sent to the company and the fire truck shipped here. Item 3 was the talk about speed cameras, which was another lengthy and very good conversation with the townspeople. There are legitimately a lot of concerns about speed and about speed cameras. Again, that was not an action item, so it did not require a decision to be made that night, which is actually timely because the governor's office has said, to take a look at this process. And so we're going to wait and kind of see how that shakes out. We'll probably get, the camera companies are going to have to probably potentially revise programs or whatever. So it'll continue to be a community conversation. And then the last item we discussed was the farm tax abatement ordinances. Good conversation. It was getting late in the night at that point and very hot, very hot in that building. But good conversation there, very supportive. And we are working, I guess I can put that in the first selectmen's report, we're working on the draft language right now for an ordinance that will move through the public process soon, the typical ordinance passing process. Any other thoughts or comments on that meeting?
No, not for me. Other than it was very hot and it's very challenged that evening. So
Have you checked the YouTube video yet to see if it's discernible on YouTube?
I have not. So I will do that.
We have been talking about solutions for that room too, about possibly some better microphone equipment. And
We need
for the acoustical.
paint.
Yeah. All right, new business, item B, review of school building project related SBC items. There's a lot here, and it's just sort of kind of general in here so that we have the things all to talk about. A lot of these are not necessarily action items, but maybe. So.
Okay, now this is where I have some problems. So I want to run through the sequence of events as I understand things should be. Okay, the SBC was a committee authorized by the townspeople, and created by the Board of Selectmen. My understanding is that committee would report back to the townspeople from the Board of Selectmen, or through the Board of Selectmen to the townspeople, the recommendation for a project.
So it doesn't report through the Board of Selectmen. It reports directly to the townspeople.
Okay,
Although it has been reporting to,
that's fine.
with updates.
That's fine. Okay. Now that we have a tangible project in planning stages, the next step, in my opinion, is to get an CGS 8-24 review for planning and zoning. We do not have that.
Right.
We'll have that possibly tomorrow night. I doubt that our planning and zoning commission is going to provide a report at the end of that meeting. By statute, that's what they're charged with doing. Our planning and zoning commission tends not to do that, other than a motion during the course of the meeting. I don't think that's.
I'm not sure that they're actually required to produce a report. I think they're supposed to comment, take some action that says it is consistent with the BOC.
I would recommend that you read the statute. Okay. Now, once that's done, then this project, from a financial perspective, should go to the Board of Finance. It's up to the Board of Finance to recommend to the Board of Selectmen bring this, and I think the Board of Finance should be having a public hearing about that project before any movement is made towards a town meeting and referendum. And we're gonna, if we act on setting a date, setting a date for a town meeting, calling a town meeting without the Board of Finance recommending we do so, we should not be doing that.
Yeah, I agree. We should not and don't need to set a date for a town meeting or approve the call. And we don't have the call. But when I was creating the agenda last week so that we could publish it in time, I had not yet heard back from all the lawyers. So I left our options as open as possible. I left the option. I just left the options open. I think the only thing that we will, of those setting the dates, I think the only thing we will do tonight is we'll set the date for the public hearing, because we want to get the hearing on the calendar and get the word out.
Okay, is that hearing a Board of Finance hearing?
It's a public hearing.
I know. I understand.
It doesn't matter that it's a Board of Finance or Board of Science. It's the same.
Right. Isn't this Board of Selectmen initiated referendum? Therefore,
there's no such thing as a Board of Finance hearing or a Board of Selectmen hearing. It's a public hearing. The only differential in hearings would be like planning and zoning has special rules around hearings and the budget process. A budget hearing is a uniquely called hearing, but a public hearing for any kind of a project is simply just a public hearing. It's basically just a town meeting.
okay, but once we have had that public hearing, I would hope if there's criticism, constructive criticism or not, if that results in some modifications to that project, that's when after that is when it should go to referendum, not before.
Yep, I think you're right. Which is why we would likely, what I think the schedule supports is that we would schedule the public hearing we've heard some people providing feedback on the budget process that if you schedule a hearing and then you schedule the board or committee to meet after that, they have an opportunity to make a change or address a concern or whatever. So if we were to schedule a public hearing for September 8th, the same night as the Board of Selectmen meeting, then we could have the Board of Selectmen meeting after the public hearing. And if there, as you said, if there's something that needs to be addressed, we can address it at that meeting. So for example, we set the public hearing to start at 6 p.m. Give time for everyone to do the public hearing. The Board of Selectmen meeting would just start when the hearing ends.
But if
Like we've done with Board of Finance.
But if there's changes to the project resulting from that public hearing, you go to a meeting immediately following the hearing. That's where I have a problem. There's no time to consider the input we've got.
Well, then that meeting might say we have to stop and go back. Right?
If people have the guts to do that, that's right.
Or if it's necessary.
Yes.
I mean, the good thing is this process has been very much done in the public already. So hopefully there aren't going to be too many complications that would need to be addressed. Hopefully.
The other thing that I have a problem with is the option that has been chosen, the plans that we've seen so far call for the demolition of Hall School.
I mean, as a possibility.
I want to make sure that in whatever data has to go to DAS, the grant application, that we are not locked into the demolition of Hall School.
I will let Jim speak on this also as the committee chairman, but we're not locked into, and there's a lot of conversation now about saving at least the historical portion, if not more, of Hall School. And that would be resolved as the process goes along, and would be incorporated as you go through. Just like the design of the new school isn't actually going to be present.
No, I understand that.
Right, it has to all get designed.
I understand that, but with the schematics, the conceptual drawings that we've seen so far, I understand they're conceptual. We're not going to build from those drawings. I get that. I'm not.
They're not even drawings, it's just public presentation material.
Nonetheless, when we look at the selected project, the demolition at Hall is shown to be everything but the 1922 building, which influences demolition costs that have been quoted on that possibility. The reality is, from my personal opinion, we should preserve the 1922 building. We should preserve the gym. We should get rid of the south wing. That leaves us with a better usable building, assuming that we can do something renovating that. Hopefully including school administration there. I don't know from everything that I've followed so far how much of the administrative staff in our school system actually has to be in the school building itself. We have our superintendent around the corner.
Right, so I would just say you're getting really granular, and there's no way to know all of that before, like a lot of that has to get resolved in design, right? And then you have to figure out what funding is.
But guidance from the committee to the designer has to be clear as to what space is required if we were trying to incorporate administration into.
And that would start the day after the referendum, probably.
That's the unfortunate part from the taxpayer's perspective, is once the referendum gives the nod, we feel as a citizen, as a taxpayer, kind of locked out of the process. And at that point, who's in control of the actual design of the site of the building? How much public input is going to be allowed and listened to between the time that we move forward with the real design and the time we submit a grant application? I want the public to be able to influence exactly what happens. And I don't No, the mechanism for doing that at this.
So you've been here through the entire process so far, and every meeting's been public, right?
I have, that's,
And I am sure it will continue to stay that way. The public will be attending every single meeting as we talk through the design.
and therein lies part of our problem in society today is that our residents are detached and not involved to a degree that I feel would be much more beneficial to everyone. And I know Mr. Marshall has seen this at his meetings.
So why don't we let him answer to your questions you asked already?
Okay, but I'm just
Particularly
everything.
about the demolition,
Yeah,
how
so,
much is included.
I mean, we're not gonna solve all of society's problems.
No, I know that.
Problems related to communication. But what I will say is, much as the school building committee, just to address your last question first, much as has been the case with the school building committee work along the way, there we've gone to the greatest extent that we are able to solicit as much community input and feedback through conversation events, workshops with community residents, teachers, staff, students. That continues and will continue up until referendum. The design process, particularly in the early stages, is going to be no different than that once we onboard our architectural and engineering teams. Community input is critical to the process to, obviously to design what best possible version of a school project will be for this community. They can't do that without community feedback and input. So a lot of community workshopping, a lot of community engagement will be structured into any solicitation for an architectural and engineering team and an LPN team. It's, speaking personally, it's a standard part of the process, and it will be as robust as we can possibly schedule with the community. To speak to your other point, one of the reasons the committee selected the option that we did, school on the site, is that it affords the opportunity for this community to discuss what happens with the whole school building. Yes, you're right. The project options do capture the full demolition of Hall, and that's what's included in the budgets. However, that's because that is what's the most economical option at the time. It's also what is supported as a part of the grant application. OGA will not reimburse, the project will not be eligible for reimbursement on any work of the property that is not related to a new school project. That is part of the grant application. With that said, the option that was selected affords the opportunity for this town to potentially consider subdividing that portion of the lot for continued town use. It will have to do so under the expectation that funds for that will be separate, will be on the community side, because it will not be able to get grant reimbursement if it's not conducive to supporting the educational needs. A partial demolition of the southern wing of the building, as long as it is in support of athletic fields, we've had pretty extensive discussions with the architectural and OPM team, understanding that if that part of the demolition makes way for improvements related to educational use, such as athletic fields, etc., then part of that building demolition could be considered eligible. OGA will, because any of that option would make the grant-funded portion of the project cheaper to the state, it is anticipated to be supported if we wanted to maintain and take that full demolition all of the project budget. That remains a community decision, and it will not be my recommendation. This is just personal recommendation, is that this town should pretty quickly, because we know we have an expressed interest, to consider creating a board dedicated to the planning and implementation of what options are viable. And we have a good 4-year window as a town, probably less, but this town, the board, and the board of finance, we all have to coordinate as the school building committee develops the project to define the limits of work that are captured as a part of the school project, whether that's a partial demolition or that's a full demolition, or whether we just subdivide the whole thing and the town decides it wants to try to maintain that asset. And we can do that iteratively and as throughout the design process as needed. I hope that there's a lot there, and it's also subject to a lot of further kind of discussion. But the option selected affords the opportunity for this town to still do that due diligence and decide whether it does in fact want to save all of the building portion of the building, and whether it decides it's financially viable to do so. So, but the school building committee isn't including that in the project budget because it's not, it will not be part of their application, will not be reimbursable as a part of the project through the state as a consolidated school project. So it is a decision for the town to
The reuse, redevelopment, right?
and the school building committee. I know just from talking to the members of the committee that everybody's supportive, and the committee would definitely be supportive and trying to work through throughout the design process and figuring out what the town wants to do with that property if it's not definition. So
Yeah, there was a lot of similar feedback during the polling, the hours of the polling that I was in attendance. There were a lot of similar conversations to this. What are the options for saving Summer Hall School? And some people actually said they liked this particular overall option of the three options because it included the greatest amount of land space, which meant the most likelihood that saving and reusing Hall School would work, and also being able to build the facilities that they feel the town needed, like all the athletic fields and things like that. So I think there's absolutely every opportunity
or the critical task obviously is to not lose that eligibility for that additional reimbursement that expires in June 30. And some of these decisions are not going to happen, or be fully developed with what potential reuses or potential interest from maybe outside parties or potential investors. All of that process will take time. It's something that I'm sure the town needs to will want to follow.
Yeah, I've already started some discussion about the possibility of getting a committee going for that, and to do some of that same stuff. Start looking at what the grant opportunities are, what the development opportunities are, working with a private developer maybe to do senior housing or whatever. Because there are better grant opportunities in that area, and there also are more developers that are willing to get involved in areas like housing. That's how we ended up with senior housing down here, because those were partnerships with HUD or.
Okay, but I want to go back to something that had been discussed and presented at one point in the SBC work here was if we were to house some of the school administration in a renovated or improved Hall School, we could still be eligible for some grant funding. So a reduced percentage.
A reduced percentage, yes. So it is an option that can continue to be explored as well. It will take additional legislative support in all likelihood if we wanted to try to maximize reimbursement to the same level that we're seeing for a consolidated school project. As a central office, the reimbursement is, I think, 50% of our base rate, so we'd be getting 30-something percent. I forget the exact number on work, which it helps. Every grant dollar helps. So that's a consideration. The other consideration is that even the 1920 portion of the hall is quite big for our central office needs, potentially. So there's a larger programming conversation to be had with this community and town offices. But that is definitely still very much viable on the table as well. There's obviously no opportunity for additional legislation in this session or prior to maybe prior to our legislation expiring, but definitely not before any equivalent. So it is something we obviously will track. There are other legislative items we are keeping tabs on related to like housing development and additional incentives. They are not viable yet. They may become additional work and growth, but it's all viable. It's the honest answer. It's just feedback and guidance as to what happened. We keep things viable.
Okay, and one of the things, I've been very clear I've said in public about my sentiments toward homeschool. That's not going to change. But I do want to say that I'm impressed with the kind of work that's come out of this. So I do want to say that I recognize the town needs to upgrade its schools. I'm in support of this concept. I really don't have a problem with the project that's been selected, acquiring all of that property. I just want to make sure, in my mind and in the taxpayers' mind, that we're getting the best bang for our buck without losing all school and finding some way to utilize that building and preserve the legacy associated with the National Historic Place that it's a part of. And I think that's essential. I would rather see us buy all of that land and not use it 100% for schools. The only concern that I have having 4 fields is the increase in maintenance costs on those fields that we don't have now.
But we also have transportation costs that we do have now.
So there's to be determined, because I think there's some parents out there that aren't going to be pleased about transportation.
But yes, they're advantageous to. I'd say they're advantageous to the school program. They're kind of large part necessary programmatic part of it. How they consolidated any school system, but they're also a community asset. It's not just school use. I mean, it's additional athletic facilities, additional complexes that are community amenity as well. So
Understood. But the bottom line is, whether it's associated with the school or it's associated with the town, it's the taxpayers that are going to foot the bill for the maintenance.
Well, types of, or programs, depending on like what program, like the soccer programs at River Road are paying a lot of like rental.
If they're self-supporting, wonderful. That's a good thing. I agree. Anyway, that's my critique at this point. I think the committee's done a wonderful job as far as what you've been able to put together. I don't necessarily agree with all of it, but that's okay. That's what makes us unique as a community.
that's why I'm helping you. Healthy discussion.
So, where do we want to go here tonight?
I'll make a couple comments.
Absolutely, go for it.
I agree the committee has worked very hard, and the process has gone way better than the previous one did. And I think the information that's available is excellent. I think there's a lot more. I think there's a lot more information out there than some people think. I think there's a lot of legitimacy to the information, and I think that we are in a situation where there's no perfect answer when you're building something that you're going to use for the next 50 to 100 years. There's just no perfect answer. Just like predicting the enrollment growth is just a forecast. So I think the committee's doing the best job with the information that they have and with the information that the state requires the committee to use. The good news is that using the higher enrollment, which the state requires us to use, is only adding 2 classrooms to building anyway. And that is adding, after the reimbursements and everything else, I think we figured out, we talked about this in a public meeting, I believe, and I think it adds $125,000 to the project total after reimbursement. That was the estimated number.
2 classrooms above what we have now. It's in that neighborhood.
Yeah. And that was the difference between using the 400 enrollment or the 519 enrollment. That was the 2 classrooms.
Yeah, and it affords opportunity for that growth should it happen. There is obviously also,
Which is why the state says you have to use the higher number, because they don't want you to come back in 5 years and ask to add 2 classrooms.
yeah, I mean, there is also opportunity. It obviously would be covered at the same rates for
expansion down the road, but that program entertained is to accommodate a reasonable level of growth up to that 519, and it is a net gain of 2 classrooms, which affords that flexibility. And at 94.58% reimbursement, the cost account for that flexibility is $120. All said and done. So it seems like it's not going to be long-term. On the round to 500. Going to be saying whether the population is 375 or the top school population is 500. That's the small town penalty. We got that waiver and pursued it so that there wasn't a penalty to this town for a square foot.
Sorry to bug you, but you got to speak up. We're getting messages that people aren't hearing you on the line. Sorry.
I will do my best. Sorry, community.
Yeah, so I think I think it's an imperfect process, which is going much better than last time, and I think every time we get questions, we look for filling in the gap and figure out what piece is missing or what new information we need to get or what we have to ask our consultants or whatever. But I think the process has been very responsive, and I think we're putting something in front of the public that is well planned and is essentially a slam dunk, because it will create a situation where you have a new facility, a better facility, and you'll have a tax impact that no one could have ever imagined was possible. Particularly when we were talking about the previous school building committee, where we were talking about the worst case scenario, people's taxes going up $2,000. And we're at a point where essentially we should be able to offer savings.
That brings up the question. Have you factored in the cost of floating the bond?
And yes, we have. You have that information? I did. So we had a meeting this morning. I did get updated numbers from a financial advisor.
Hang on a second. Hey, why are you shaking your head? What's the problem?
I looked at that data, it's excluded, so footnote by Unistyler says those costs are excluded.
In what's published right now?
Correct.
You just said we got new information this morning that has, and it's only a difference of $100,000 over the whole project. Just hang on and you'll hear the information.
So, yes, we did get the cost of that. There are estimates, obviously, because the cost of issuance will be what it is at the time that we take on the debt. It's actually a series of 5, because we're going to have short-term and bonded debt servicing over a 4 or 5 year period. And again, this is information we sent to you earlier this afternoon, just so that you had it for this. I'll be sharing with the Board of Finance obviously tomorrow. I want to make sure you guys saw it first as the committee.
Yeah, I didn't even get a chance to open the email and print it. We did interviews all afternoon.
So the cost of issuance is $50,000 in year 1, $50,000 in year 2, and it's 65 following year. I don't remember those numbers right off my head, even though I stared at them all today. But yes,
Is that the construction now, or is that the bond issue?
that's the debt issuance. Yeah,
Those are all
the rest
the
is covered in the project budget costs, like the soft costs and incidentals are covered in the project budget. But the cost of issuance of the debt to the town was one of the components that we didn't have previously, or we didn't capture previously. It will be shown in information that you will apparently see tomorrow.
I think if I can find the email right.
Tomorrow or
Well, Mike already has it.
I'm seeing if I a findings now, right?
No. Yeah, but I was talking about, you were talking about board of finance, they don't. Right?
They're meeting Thursday, yes, we're meeting with them on Thursday to discuss, planning and zoning commission, their tomorrow referral is tomorrow. I think that's the critical piece, and they can either choose to write a report or they can not do anything for 30 days. 35 days, maybe 35. And it becomes, and it's, well, I see, but I'm not even going to vote on that. But that's up to their determination. We do have, bond council has provided language and motion for the standard process that should they choose to. They can decide to act on the bond.
You're talking about the email at 4:03 p.m. Okay. I haven't opened it yet. I'm going to forward it to you right now. Without even opening, I'm going to forward it to you.
It's not much different than what we discussed this morning with the business manager, Mike.
Okay.
The numbers are, again, more favorable than the information that's online, notably so, because of the increased reimbursement rate. So, even with the inclusion of geothermal in the budget, there's still, you have the cost right here. The net down is $9,080,000 after reimbursement compared to what I think was 9.7 or 9.8 million previously. So it's a dramatic further savings to the town, which is great. And it reduces obviously our debt servicing, as you'll see when Mike shares that. It reduces our debt servicing need accordingly as well, which is wonderful. So, forwarded out to you.
Yeah, we were already in interview. Again, those last until 6 o'clock. So,
yeah.
So the bond issuance costs, and so part of the reason that this is updating all the time, and I'm sure it's frustrating the public that there's new numbers, but the numbers get better for the most part every time. As Jim said, the reimbursement rate has gone up, and because of the legislature changed the formula state. The formula changed, updated for the new year, so we gained a little more on reimbursement, which improved things. And then as we've been working with the financial advisor, who, like I said at the meeting last week, the financial advisor has fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers of Wilmington. They work for us, and they are continuing to shop it around and find better financial strategies. So their numbers are always updating until we get a point where we're going to lock it in. And so it's, so it's 50,000 in each of the first 2 years. And then there would be the strategy for how you cover that 50,000 would be worked out, as with the financial advisor on what's the most strategic way to cover that.
Just to be clear, the only change of note to these costs is the fact that double multiplied reimbursement rate. That's what triggers the change. And then the project budget is updated. The two changes that happened since the previously published data was the 1.25% increase to reimbursement and the inclusion of geothermal costs in the project budget. So the structure of debt servicing, that approach hasn't changed, and the latest iteration, it's still the most opportune solution as expressed by our financial advisor.
So the first 5 years there are costs, these issuance costs that we're talking about, and so from the first through the 5th year, it's 50,000, 50,000, 90,000, 65,000, 65,000. And it's in the stuff you have, and that's all structured, that's all added, calculated into the formula. And then when do we get that, when does that go out to the public? Does that have to be approved by the committee, or is it I'm not sure what Or can that go to the public?
It's going, it went to you, it's gonna go to the Board of Finance tomorrow, and go to committee at the same time. Yeah, it's the latest update, it's based on what the committee reviewed meeting last day.
So it'll be out to the public this week.
It'll be out to boards and towns this week. I may let the Board of Finance, discuss it. I can share it publicly, post it on the website as well tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean,
You guys have a chance to see it first.
yeah, I mean, as long as it doesn't create a procedural, the numbers are updating, but I think it's probably more important that we get it to the public.
I agree. Yeah, so I'll make sure we get it up.
I would suggest then, yeah, get it. Okay. So
We have the one thing that's actually actionable tonight.
well, let's go through the list. So I think we're reviewing the final project recommendation right now, right? That's what we're talking about. Refer project to the Board of Finance for approval, which we have now confirmed with the attorneys. We do not need to do that. The SBC requested the meeting with the Board of Finance.
We're working on their agenda for Thursday.
Right. Yep. We originally, so as I edited this agenda through last week, it originally said refer to planning and zoning. And again, that we were told, we don't need to refer it because the SBC is a committee approved by the townspeople, and school building committees have like a legal designation. They have sent it to planning and zoning. So we're just acknowledging the fact it's been sent to the Board of Finance. It's been sent for the 824 review. The draft resolution is there. The lawyers are still. This was built by bond counsel to meet the state's requirements for the bonding and for the DAS requirements. OGA. It is DAS still, right? Yeah, DAS OGA requirements. And it is at our town attorneys right now. The items that are in bold, where I ask the questions, those are being reviewed by the town attorneys right now to make sure the town attorney agrees with bond counsel.
But we're still,
So yeah, and we don't need to approve it yet anyway. It's for conversation.
well, I'd like the entire board to be.
Yeah, the good news is the entire board will be here for the next meeting, hopefully. And the even better news is once the lawyers agree on it, we probably have no say in it anyway. Okay, so that was review draft resolution. Possible set date for public hearing. So these are the three things you and I were talking about: the public hearing, the town meeting, and the call. The last two, the date of the town meeting and the approval of the call, we're not ready for yet because we can't do the call until we resolve that. But anyway. So take 7 right out of there. And setting the date for the town meeting, the only thing I would say is for months we've been trying to figure out how this all fits in the schedule because we've been working with the registrars. They have a very complicated schedule this whole year. As you know, they just got out of the primary process, and then they go into early voting for the fall elections. And
The challenge for them is there's a different set of voters for this project than it was early voting.
yes, right. There's a lot of complications in overlapping those, and we can't go right after the election in November either because they have a lockdown auditing period where the machines can't be used. So we can't use the machines for a certain period of time for a referendum. So the goal has been targeting for months and months now. We've been targeting September 29th, which was the date requested by the registrars, to try to cause the least amount of kerfuffle. And it also was the jump out when we originally thought we were going to have to do it by June. We found out we didn't have to do it by June, so we pushed out.
No, I recall all of that.
So that's how we ended up with the 29th. So when you work your way backwards from the 29th, that would make the town meeting probably on the 15th. So you have this is the schedule that they've been working with on the school building committee. So, all right, the yellow line here. Where from? 29th. Again, this is just a planning thing. And then if you back up to right here, the green line, that's the town meeting right here. So that gives you the time to do after the town meeting to do the notices for the referendum. And then if you back up previous to that, there's just enough time to do September 8th. So if you did the public hearing, like starting at 6 p.m. on the 8th, you go into the public hearing as reasonably completed its business, and then the Board of Selectmen meeting would start. And if there was a reason at that point to halt the process, then the Board of Selectmen would take that action as opposed to approving the call for the town meeting. If it seemed like it was prudent to move forward at that meeting, the Board of Selectmen would approve the call for the town meeting, taking us to the 15th, and then the meeting on the 15th taking us to the 29th. So, if you look at, let's get that. For the 8th, yeah, so we only have to make it for the 8th and do the notification. So this hearing has different notification requirements than our budget hearings, because budget hearings have a unique place in Connecticut general statutes.
Yeah, that's considered the annual town meeting.
The annual town budget. Well, this is hearing in this case.
No, right, what I'm saying. Budget process, that is considered formal annual.
Well, it's the budget hearing and then the annual town meeting afterward. So this has a little bit different requirements because in the resolution, there are items about bonding and land purchase on those have different notification requirements. So for us to meet the notification requirements, we should set the hearing date tonight for the 8th. What are your thoughts on 6 p.m.? I mean, it just keeps from pushing there may be lengthy discussion, and then there may be need for a selectmen's meeting afterwards to take some kind of action. So if we start at 6, it gives more time.
If we're going to do that, and if we're going to have to act on it afterwards, if it's obvious we can act, and there's not a lot of issues brought up in the public hearing portion. And the public hearing portion, I hate to do this because I know this is not going to go over well.
But if you think about it before you say it.
No, I wouldn't say it anyway, but should have a cutoff to be realistic. And I hate doing something like that.
I hate doing that too. I mean, the
We
idea.
can call it for the 8th. We can't have a selectmen's meeting on the 9th at 12:01 a.m.
Well, I think it would be incumbent upon the chair of the hearing or the moderator, it would be incumbent upon whoever is chairing the hearing at some point to say we're going late enough.
All to eliminate repetitious.
Yeah. Yeah, that is within the purview of whoever's moderator presiding over the hearing.
Mike, if I may, it's not going to be the only further opportunity for public discussion either. The committee's holding, the SBC's holding another community forum. Anticipate to be a large one on September 2nd, that's a week prior, with the architectural team, owners project management team. To have a robust dialogue or start a robust dialogue, which again, we continue in public hearing, and which I'm sure will continue again at town meeting. So
Won't stop until the shovel goes in the ground.
and that's a good thing. The more engaged we get.
Even after we cut the ribbon and moved in, it'll still be a conversation. All right. Well, I'd like to make a motion to set the date for the public hearing on the school building project for September 8th at 6 p.m.
Okay.
Any discussion? We're going to talk about location in a minute. Do you want to do that now as part of that motion?
Discuss it.
Well, I think, as you noted, the acoustics are always a problem at the old town hall.
Can we do this in the library community room downstairs?
We can do it anywhere we select.
I'm thinking schedule up for that.
I don't know. I mean, we could set the date and then we could announce the,
Different service.
That occupancy of your own. That occupancy of that space of your own.
what is the limit on that room?
Sorry. I'm involved in that space, so you know how the effective occupancy of that room.
Downstairs or in the
Downstairs.
Probably,
It's close.
so we had just over 70 people the other night at the town hall. Right. I think that size group would be pretty full for that little room at the library. The room at the Willington Hill Fire Station is 125 with tables and chairs, so I think it's 175 with just chairs. But I don't think there are 175 chairs. Well, it's got Wi-Fi and it has air conditioning. The old St. Jude's is even bigger, doesn't have air conditioning, but it does have Wi-Fi. I mean, we've got spaces. Oh, sounds cool. That should be nice and hot. That's the biggest room. I'm part of it. Yeah. Although the acoustics are not great there. Okay. Why don't we do this? We'll set the date and time. I will confirm location TBD. I'll confirm an available location. Contact the library, find out what's available. Contact the fire department, find out what's available. We'll just announce it. And we'll resolve that tomorrow so that when the all the public announcements go out, we don't have to try to get people's attention. Okay, so the motion is to set the date for the public hearing, the date and time as September 8th, 2026 at 6 p.m. You did second that. I've done this since. I think so. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. That's it for new business. Old business. Reappointments to inland wetlands.
I'll start a motion with that one.
But
And motion to reappoint Tom Bradley to the Wellington Wetlands Water Course immediately until August 15th.
I'll second that. Say aye. Aye. Passes. And we're going to table the reappointment of Ralph Toulis until there are other board members here to vote on it. Right? And then just recap for informational purposes, as I already said, the interviews are complete for the accounting assistant and for the revenue collector. Decisions and process hopefully should move on in the next few days. And that will be, those are significant. The revenue collector is significant. No, important. It's important this time of year. And the accounting assistant, they've been running since February, down one person. So this will bring them back up to 4 people in the finance office, and obviously there'll be some training time. We have proposals from the vendor that does the software for some training and some process improvements, but the vendor is very expensive. But we also have another consultant that knows that software inside and out and trains on it, who is like a quarter of the hourly price as the software company.
Is this for the department or is this
For finance department, the software they use, because there's a lot of modules in that software, but it isn't necessarily being well leveraged. You know, the software has added modules over the years, and the training is so expensive it hasn't necessarily been taken on. So we're looking at if we have maybe in saved salary, we have a little bit left over that we can bring in some training. And one of the big goals is to make the budget, the public presentation of the budget easier this coming budget season. Having more of it available online, see it in an easier to digest format and all that kind of thing. So I have my fingers crossed.
Yeah, and I think the capital investments need to be separate from operating.
Well, regardless of that, how that process is changed or not changed, the visibility of all those things will hopefully be a lot quicker. Good welfare. Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting tomorrow night, 7:30 p.m. Town Hall. It's a multi-commission meeting. Economic development strategic plan is going to be discussed, including long-term planning, tax incentives, fiscal stability. It's sort of a workshop with Board of Selectmen joining the EDC at the Planning and Zoning regular meeting. And to try to get the conversation going again about the tax incentives for commercial.
That meeting going to be upstairs?
They did not specify. I don't know.
And just a point,
a little crowded out.
yeah, I think all of those things. Interestingly, what I've learned in the meantime is we do actually have a couple properties in town that are already on tax incentives, tax stabilizing or reducing incentives, even though we don't have an ordinance allowing it to be done, because they have specific ordinances for them, like Willington Woods. Willington Woods has a very favorable tax incentive, which is coming up on its 20-year expiration / renewal. Which is a conversation we're going to need to be having, because Willington Woods has asked us to just sign a renewal of that incentive for the next 40 years, which I am absolutely not putting my name on until we have some public input, because it caps the taxes at a rate which is very low, which is important for affordable elderly housing, no question. That's why it was done. That was part of the grant approval process with HUD to get the housing. But if the number stays the same for 60 years, the rents certainly will have gone up and all that. So the revenue maybe needs to adjust over time. So we need to have some more conversations about that. And then first day of school is coming up pretty quickly, August 27th. So everyone should take note. That affects the community, affects traffic, roadside safety, kids waiting for the bus on the sides of the road. And obviously, any of us who live in areas near the apartments where the college students live are seeing college students are starting to move back in. So traffic's picking up on the local roads. The challenge there is often college students are new to the area. They may be from out of state, and so they don't know our roads. And I often see them their first time going down Batty Road, discovering what a roller coaster it is, wide-eyed and screeching tires and stuff. So just a heads up, there's a lot of new stuff going on our roads. All right, anything else before we go back to present to speak? All right, let's start in the room this time. Present to speak.
Jimmy, what?
Yeah.
I just came up to see if there was any more outside of this meeting. Last week I came here and found out I was up there, saw South Wellington's fire trucks, and I said, oh, maybe it's a meeting for that, you know, so I missed a meeting. I hear it was a good turnout, but, it's about the cameras and what we've talked about, and it's being moving ahead a little bit. I didn't know if there was any data, if you said the data came in, I don't know, the speed, but say on, but there's already one death on 3. Number of people. And like I said, these now is being talked about. I know there's been pulled up a lot of opposition, of course, with the flat cameras that a lot of people are talking about now. So hopefully, the people in town, when we talk about it, they're aware that it's just a speed camera, not anything that we personalized. Where is it? See by more people. Well, with 3 rows again, apparently screen checked, I guess, for
Capturing speed.
I don't know what the other 2 rows were, but 2 rows I know.
I'll tell you after the meeting, I'll talk with you and show you how to find it all online.
Oh,
And it was, I think 9 locations.
oh, fine.
I'll show you how to find it online. So to look at all of them.
All right. But like I said, glad to see it's moving forward with the cameras, and it's definitely well needed because it's just going to be killed every time I go. And now with school opening, the buses, just we road is very heavily traveled at certain times. You know, I've spoken in the past with like FedEx Carl Davis, which is the manager, Jay Drusick, and Ted Avery, who's in charge of tandems and trailers. I spoke with all of them, and they kind of agree with me as far as the speed on Ruby Road, because it was narrow and hilly and too many blind spots. They couldn't be going very fast. Well, they are. It's a fact of the matter. They're really going pretty fast, especially box trucks. But even the cars, or this is first time I've seen pickup trucks, cars going up and down the road, just way over the speed limit. I realize 40 miles an hour where it's the wider section up near the up there, the library down to zero. And when it goes to 30, you feel like you're almost crawling. I understand that, but it is a narrow road, and I don't want to see the speeds change. I hope, but to these people just going 4 times that's 3 and a half, 4 times that. And it's just very, very dangerous. You can't pull out of your driveway. I spoke with a few people they know them on the road. I belonged to the fire department for years, and I know the phone list on the fire department. Nobody has those phones anymore, so everybody has a cell. So it's hard to reach these people and reach out to them, see how they're doing this on it. But from the ones I have spoke to, they have experience on it, and it seems like there's no fee in the system, which is shame. And I know the manpower, I've talked to troops many times, they said something about that, the manpower is short. So I can understand that. Take the camera, this would be a great spot for cameras. Slow these cars down. That's all I'm here. I can't see it. Should be.
It will continue to be a conversation. We'll see how it evolves.
Okay.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay. Yeah.
I know that.
Well, even Tony Guglielmo, which I know very well,
Yes.
was a senator. he used to travel all the time going to Yukon, and he said, oh, it has picked up quite a bit on this road. And now the trees are coming on each side of the road down. It's just wide open. The road's narrow. And you see people passing on the hill from up. No passing. They're passing on the hill. Just extremely, so dangerous. Speeds of bus, which it is. It's just craziness. Wish people would slow down. You gotta do something about it.
Yeah, see,
Standards like
that should be in gun welfare, actually. Slow down, people.
Yeah. Oh, okay, so more your
Thank you,
time.
Jim.
Thank you. Thank you for your time too.
Anybody else in the room?
What's interesting is, they stated earlier in the first part of the speech, I'm one of those frustrated taxpayers. I'm trying to understand, not the reimbursement, but a great deal. But it's very difficult to understand the cost of the project at this late juncture. We're planning on scheduling a public hearing and still don't know the cost of the project is 4 or 5.
That's simply not true. It's just not true. Of course, you can continue, but you know, we've talked about this 100 times. If you say something that is completely not true, I have to correct the record. The cost is out there everywhere. It's on documents all over the place. There's garbage that people left behind at
And
meetings.
school building, so water detention, school building. Not used that.
Yes, it's gotten better by just over 1%. So the data is essentially the same, but even better, more savings.
Again, we're referring to reimbursement, not the cost.
Reimbursement brings down the cost.
I just want to know what the cost is. And that is my concern. What is the cost? Reimbursement is subjective.
No,
As we see talks about offsets, we don't know if those offsets will occur.
reimbursement is not subjective, it's in legislation.
Each year, independently of costs associated.
Did you go to either of the polling days of the polling?
I did on Sunday.
Okay. And so you saw the boards on the wall, which said exactly what the percentages of reimbursement were, which is not subjective, it's in legislation. And you saw exactly what the mill rate effect would be. That's the cost factor.
Again, I want to see the cost independently of reimbursement and offsets and full costs, including demolition of some school.
The demolition of Center School is not going to be in the project cost. That's been clarified from the day the committee was created. It is being talked about and it's being presented as a potential cost to the community, but it's not included in the project cost because it's not part of building the new school.
What I think the public and myself would like to see is the total cost of the project from year 1 to year 20, the bonding period. Shown what is that cost increase each year and cumulative. Look at what that data is that's currently there. It says compounding is not included. As they show the mill rate increase each year of the project. There are substantial mill rate increases 4 years in a row. And then the last period of the project, there are consistent mill increases each year. So the concern is what is that actual cost? I'm not trying to be argumentative. I just want to understand what the cost is. Not it would be favorable this year because this offsets apply, or we're excluding this, or we're including that. Just looking at the cost side so you understand what it is.
I think if there are specific questions that it seems like maybe I'm not understanding, maybe you should put it in writing to Jim at the SVC thing and see if maybe he can better understand what you're asking for, because it may be a terminology problem, like mill rate. There's no mill rate increases in that information. It's mill rate decreases. So maybe maybe Jim will understand your question better, and then I won't be frustrating both of us by not understanding the reason.
I understand now the board of finance. Any question? I hope a rigorous examination of the side.
Yeah. What he was talking about. Okay. Others in the room before I go online? Online, Nick.
Nick Tella, Myrtle Road. I just want to go through a few points. I was able to look through the purchase and contract. I think it was like 20 something pages long. Saw that there was no appraisal protection language in it at all, which I found interesting that one of the SBC members, John Tian, had mentioned that it appraised at 350, yet for some reason we offer 510. As far as the options, option 4 itself, continuously have reached out to the SBC to get a fair comparison to the other options. Still have not gotten anything back from them. And not sure if the SBC is going to even try to entertain that. FOIA status, not sure what I had submitted a FOIA request, and not sure if the selectmen have identified it as being completed in conjunction with the other entities that were requested with information on it. I know when I spoke to the state, they were still working on it. So I'm not sure what the first selectman's office has for an opinion, if it's been closed out or not on their behalf, because I definitely have not received all the information requested.
Nick, do you mind if I just ask a question for clarity on that?
Sure.
Are you referring to it was basically about 3 pages, and it was about all the financial calculations involved in the SBC in the numbers that were presented? Is that the FOIA request you're talking about?
It's in regards to the AI meme or image that SBC had created with a bunch of numbers with the 4 options, and basically
Right.
how it came to. Yeah.
I just want to make sure that if I'm not missing a FOIA request from you, I believe it was received, it was something like May 31st or something like, no, that's too long ago.
No, it was much sooner than
Hang
that.
on.
It was July 23rd. It was the day after our community conversation.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
no, it definitely hasn't been filled. It definitely hasn't been filled to my liking. I'm not going to spend a present to speak to go over that. We can talk later.
I just want to make sure I'm not missing a request from you. That's
No,
all.
no, it's in regards to that request. Yep.
Okay, it's the July 23rd.
Correct. I'm going off of July 23rd is what you see, because I don't have that information, so I'm going off of what that date is. But I believe that's probably sounds about right.
Okay, do you have another recent FOIA request into the Board of Selectmen or the First Selectman? Or is that the only recent? Okay.
No, so
Okay. It's
that's
satisfied, and it's been responded to you weeks
okay.
ago. It's
Okay.
done.
Okay. Well,
Yep.
that's
And
what. Okay.
that was pointed out.
Okay. Well, if that's the case, then I'll just file a complaint with the state, because it definitely hasn't been
Sounds
filled.
good.
But because I also tried to send it to the Board of Education, but on the website there's no contact information for Brianna Ross to make sure it went over to the Board of Education. So I'm not sure if they even received it, since that directory is still not up to date online. Because within that, it helps people. I mean, we just heard another resident in town. We don't know what the full costs are to the town, and it would be helpful to identify that. So, and then lastly, just the camera concerns. I wasn't able to make that meeting the other day. I just not sure what came of it, but I just have a lot of concerns, even if it's just going to be speed cameras or such. Anybody that's worked with that type of technology knows that, yes, speed cameras can be used for surveillance. Unfortunately, I've been in plenty of those briefings when I was in a different life. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else online? Jen?
I just wanted to say thank you to the SBC. I've done it in a couple of forums, and I want to make sure that the folks who have followed along and are doing our best to understand and support the work that the committee is doing are heard as well. And I urge folks, if you have any questions before the referendum, to please ask them of the folks that have the information and that can answer the questions in the most thoughtful and informational way possible. And it's hard to find people to do this work. So, Jim, I'm not addressing you, sorry, as the person in the room who chairs the SBC, I hope that that person might pass along the gratitude of a, a lot of the folks in this town for all the work that you've done on this project.
Thank you. Anybody else online? Last call. I am getting more messages that the sound quality was still poor tonight. I apologize for that. I don't know what is. I've had IT work on this multiple times. I'm not sure what to do next, except maybe get rid of it. Get a different one. Maybe there's Owl 2.0 now. All right, last call online, last call in the room. Okay, second. All those in favor? Aye. The meeting is adjourned at sometime I can't read. 8:06 p.m. Thank you.
You voted last.